Okay, now I'm going to show you how we can create rock structures using object replacement within View and creating some pretty neat looking stuff. What I'm going to do is just build a simple object just out of boxes. I'll make that just a little bit larger, flatten the top, and now I'm going to go ahead and create another cube and drag this over. And I'm just going to kind of lay out the idea and just the outline of sort of a building. And that's one of the walls. And then I'll create two pillars after that. So I'm going to copy and paste this box I just made, move it to the other side, and make it square. And then copy and paste again, move it to the other side, and cut it down halfway, copy and paste, move that up, and then drag that down just a little. So now we got a bunch of different cubes here in our scene. I'm going to bring this one down just a bit. So it's just overlapping just a tiniest amount. And now what we can do is convert all these different cubes to rocks so that we've just built sort of a rock structure. So I'm going to select all of our cubes, right mouse click, and go to Replace By with Fit Object, and select Rock. And now we have a bunch of different rocks in there. Of course, it doesn't quite match up. So what we actually should probably do is to create either separate rocks, because what's happening right now, since I did them all at once, it's using the exact same rock to create this structure. So I'm going to hit Control Z and undo that. And what we want to do is actually be able to go in and select which rocks we want, or not even so much which rocks we want, but cycle through them so we can kind of see the options that we have. And now the quickest way to do that is to actually create a keyboard shortcut for this. So I'm going to go up to our Options and Operations, and we can go and find Replace Fit Object, and we see that we have rock right here, and I've already signed a keyboard shortcut. But if we want to make one, all we really got to do is double click on that option that we want, and then type in what we want the keyboard shortcut to be. I have mine set to Control Alt R. So I'm going to close that out, and after you set that, we can go back into our scene. And now I'm just going to select one of these cubes and hit Control Alt R. And if I do it again, and I can keep doing it, and it'll cycle through the different rocks. So this way we can see which ones fit in to kind of what we're looking for. And we could, of course, modify them as well. But this gives us a rough idea and gives us the options to just kind of cycle through these different rocks. And then we could select the other ones if we wanted and hit Control Alt and R and convert those. And then if I don't like one specific rock, I can change that one as well. And then maybe change that one on top of it. And then I can alter our top piece if I want to bring that down just a little. And as you can see, because of the shape of the top rock, we'll need to also move one of those pillars over, or actually both of them, sort of inside the object just a little. We'll select those last two and move those in. Undo that, move them in. And now you can see we have kind of a neat little rock structure here. And we can go ahead and change these rocks at any time just by selecting one specific rock, hitting Control Alt and R. And we could just cycle through those if we're looking for a different shape. And another thing you'll notice is that the rock numbers and the names are changing every single time I convert this to a new rock. So I'm going to select this top one again, and if I hit Control Alt and R, you can see the number gets longer. Now there's one way we can actually change that, and all we got to do is give it our own names. So if I set this to top now and hit Control Alt and R, it'll just convert the rock, and actually moves quicker because it's not changing the name of the rock, which lags it just a tiny little bit as far as the refresh rate goes. So this will allow us to cycle through these rocks a lot quicker. And then if we find the rocks we want, we can select all of them and apply the same material to them if we want. Under rocks, I could select gray marble, click OK, and now we have this little rock structure here. And we could add more rocks to it, add more objects, build something a lot more complex. So it's a lot easier this way if we start out with our boxes or any other basic shapes and convert them to rocks later, because that way we can pretty much uh, customly define exactly where we want certain areas to be. And then if we don't like it, we can go back and just convert that to a different rock. And then you could rotate them, change them, and make lots of different shapes out of them. So it's a pretty neat little thing to do here. And another thing, like I said, you want to keep in mind is definitely just changing these names. You can just make them basic too, but you don't want them to say rock in them at all, because that will keep our numbers producing. So if I just call this one 1, call this one 2, and go through and just give them numbers already, and then select them and change their rocks, we won't have any updates in the name of our object. And then we can go through and even select different materials for each rock if we wanted. And then when we're done, even just group them together. So we have one overall group, and then we can adjust our material for the whole group. And that way it changes every single object and every single rock within the group. But if we ever needed to, we could even go back in and select specific objects and change that to a different type. So now we have 2 different types of rocks in there, and I'll go ahead and do a preview render. We can just see that I was able to change that one color even though it is all grouped together. So it's a neat little technique you can do. You can build castles out of this. You can build ancient rock structures and just kind of piece it all together with some basic objects and then cycle through those rocks. Another thing you could also do is build yourself a rock library if you're going to be creating rock structures. And one easy way to create your rock library is just to load up a single sphere, or a box, and you can just hit Control Alt R, and then that will give us a rock. And I'm going to change that name to 1, and then we could save this rock with our default color on it, and just save that out as one shape. Change it to another one, save that out, change it to another one, and then you can just go through and make yourself a little rock library of all different shapes so that you can see what you're working with if you want to have custom rocks for creating a little scene.